Let's really think about this for a second. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and you decide you're done. You're tired of debt, tired of bills, tired of the system, and you realize that you have good credit, a clean record, and a stable job, which means you qualify for a very large loan. So you go to a major American bank and you apply for, let's say, $750,000. Maybe you structure it as a business loan. Maybe you present a clean, polished proposal. Everything looks legitimate. The bank runs your numbers, your credit score checks out, your income makes sense, you sign the paperwork. And then one day the money hits your account. $750,000. Now here's where the fantasy begins. You wire the money out, you move it to somewhere offshore. You book a one-way ticket to a country where the sun is warm, the cost of living is low, and nobody knows your name. You land, you get a new SIM card, you rent an apartment in cash. And for a moment, it feels like you've beaten the system. But here's what most people completely misunderstand. The financial system is not emotional. It doesn't panic. It doesn't chase you in a dramatic movie-style scene. It doesn't need to. It simply starts a process. The first month passes and you don't make a payment. Internally, the loan is flagged as 30 days delinquent. Nothing dramatic happens, no alarms, just data. Your risk profile changes, late fees are added, interest continues compounding exactly as the contract says it will. By the second and third month, the tone changes. Now the account is considered non-performing. And here's something important most people never think about. Large banks are heavily regulated. They must report bad loans. Your disappearance is not just an inconvenience. It becomes part of their regulatory filings. At that point, it stops from being a customer service issue to becoming a legal issue. And here's the critical part. They don't need you to be physically present in the United States to sue you. They file a civil lawsuit in your home state. You're overseas, so you don't show up. The court issues something called a default judgment, which basically means the bank automatically wins because you weren't there to defend yourself. Now the loan isn't just a debt, it's a court judgment. And that judgment can sit there for 10, sometimes 20 years, depending on the state. It can be renewed, it accumulates interest, and it waits. People imagine that leaving the country creates distance from the problem. In reality, it just freezes the problem in time. Now let's address the big question. Is this criminal? Usually, unpaid loans are civil matters, not criminal ones. The US doesn't extradite people just because they defaulted on debt. But there is a massive but. If prosecutors believe you took the loan with no intention of repaying it, that crosses into fraud territory. And fraud is not civil. Fraud can become federal. And federal charges like wire fraud or bank fraud are absolutely extraditable offenses. Intent is everything. If your digital footprint shows you plan to disappear the moment the money cleared, that changes the entire legal landscape. But let's just say, for argument's sake, you avoid criminal charges. You're living abroad. The local country doesn't aggressively enforce US civil judgments. You're technically safe. But are you really? Because the American banking system is not isolated. It's deeply woven into global finance. Through compliance networks, anti-money laundering regulations, international reporting agreements, and financial data sharing systems, your financial identity doesn't just vanish. If you try to open a serious bank account overseas and move large amounts of money, compliance officers may ask questions. If you apply for residency somewhere that requires financial disclosure, that judgment might appear. If you ever want to build legitimate business relationships tied to US institutions, your past is present. Modern finance doesn't hunt you down loudly. It restricts your access quietly. And here's something people rarely think about. Even if you never go to jail, even if you never get deported, you've essentially exiled yourself from one of the largest financial systems in the world. You can't easily return home without risk. You can't rebuild US credit. you can't access mainstream American lending again. Any assets you hold in your name inside the country are vulnerable. And if you ever step back onto US soil, the judgment is still waiting, with interest this time. The system doesn't forget, it only archives. Now let's step back from the legal mechanics and look at the psychology. Why is this idea so tempting in the first place? Because modern debt feels suffocating. Student loans stretch decades. Medical bills destroy savings. Businesses fail and leave personal guarantees behind. The pressure is real. And in a digital world where money moves instantly across borders, it creates this illusion that escape might also be instant. But here's the truth. The financial system evolved faster than the fantasy of running away from it. It is patient, it is structured, and it is legally reinforced. And most importantly, it has time. You might have $750,000 today, but it has 20 years. And in a world where access to banking determines whether you can invest, travel, build, or even operate normally, being quietly locked out may be a more powerful obstacle than any dramatic arrest. So when people ask, what happens if I take a huge bank loan and leave the country? The honest answer is not a Fast and Furious chase scene. It's something far more calculated. You don't just risk legal trouble, you risk becoming financially radioactive. And in the 21st century, that might be the most expensive freedom you could ever buy.